Hi, I'm Kate, and I'm here at the Canadian Science Policy Conference with Julia Krolik, who is the founder of Pixels and Plans and Art the Science, and here to talk about her work a bit. So, Julia, could you tell me about Pixels and Plans? What's that about?
Yeah, so Pixels and Plans is kind of like an advertising agency for knowledge. We're kind of like Mad Men, I guess. The idea behind it is really to employ some really good creative direction and strategy to help different organizations bring their knowledge forward to their respective audiences. And so one of the things we employ a lot is this idea of information design, and that's really about realizing that data is just something that doesn't really represent, it's not real, it represents a reality. And so we try to work with data to bring the stories out, because data itself is just a bunch of numbers. So how do we get information into the hands of the right people and give it a brand, give it a design, give it an aesthetic, but also keep a meaning that would convey the information that's required.
Right, and what are the challenges for that?
I think some of the challenges, it depends on, I think, our clients and who we work with. Definitely more challenging to work with some of the government clients because of the different restrictions that they have. But in that challenge comes the beauty of creation. I think sometimes the most creative you get is when you have a set of restrictions. And so we enjoy that work a lot. I give like a specific example. One client that we worked with had to have everything in black and white design because these products were being printed overseas, where oftentimes their clients would think that they're just missing color because they only print in black and white. And so the whole design process was just in black on white paper. And it was amazing it was probably one of the most amazing projects I've worked on, just in terms of getting that creative process and thinking about balance when you really just have that restriction.
Right, that's a pretty significant restriction.
Yeah, but an important one to acknowledge too, I think, in terms of accessibility and that kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What about Art the Science? What does that do?
So Art the Science is a nonprofit organization that I founded a couple of years ago, and we basically really focus on putting artists in science labs immersively. And so what that means is they spend 2 to 3 weeks in a lab being part of that research group with the PI, and the idea is for them to really get inspired by the science and the methodology that's happening in the lab, and then to produce a creative work. And so we actually have done our pilot residency in March, and we also put in place a program evaluation asking, well, what's the value to the researcher to have this creative? And then what's the value to the creative to be a part of this experience? And of course, what's the value to the research group? And so that report is now online. It's our phase 1. And then phase 2 of this is presenting the work that's created to the public and having them engage. And that's kind of the science communication piece of this. Right. And so we have 2 events coming up where we're also going to be program evaluating as well and finding out, well, is there value to the public from this experience, and putting it in their hands and seeing what their reaction is and what they're learning about the research through this art.
Right. Is there any culture shock there between the creatives and the researchers?
It's weird. Because I'm both someone who is, I have a formal education in the sciences, and I've gone through the academic route. I've published scientific papers, and so I'm aware of how science works in that way, the structure of it. But I've also had an exhibiting art practice for a long time as well, and so I kind of do have that cross-disciplinary empathies, and so I do notice sometimes there are some clashes, but I'm always coming from the perspective of saying, I'll advocate for both quite easily. If something is not right from the science side, I'll go out and correct that. If something is not right from the art side, I'll say the same thing. So, but I think that generally there are a lot of artists that are really interested in science art. That's something that has been evolving for a while. And so to create these opportunities for them to go behind the wizard curtain of science, I mean, think about it. If you wanted to, take up a hobby, as an art form, I think you can find a pretty fast course on something that will get you into the world of art. Maybe not, something really complicated, but even then, if you wanted to metalsmith, you could probably find a course on that. What would be the course on tissue culture or DNA, right? But I don't believe that you need a whole bachelor's of science degree to know how to culture microbes, only if that's the only skill set you are after, for instance. So we're opening those doors as well for artists that are interested in exploring the science side in their art practice.
Right. That sounds like an interesting opportunity. So I think that's about all the time we have for our conversation. But if you could say, what do you think is the biggest value of this conference we're here, the Canadian Science Policy Conference?
Sure. I'm really, really interested in communicating with different people and different stakeholders, and I find that this conference brings together a really diverse group of people, policymakers, scientists, science communicators. So it's been really an enriching experience to have gone through and looked at some of the panels, and yeah, I was really excited about the different content and also the different networking opportunities that have been presented.
Right, absolutely. Oh, that sounds great. Thank you very much for this interesting insight into science, art, and design. Is there any place that our viewers can find you?
Yeah, definitely. So if you want to look up Art the Science, it's artthescience.com. And if you want to look up Pixels and Plans, it's pixelsandplans.com. And I think on Twitter, the same thing. And if you want to get a hold of me on Twitter, it's Julia Krolik, so at YuliaKrolik. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you. It's been great chatting with you. Have a great conference.
Thanks, you as well.